And it may not be a great budget situation, but you've finally released your nuclear policy costings and seen them heavily contested. And they involve, as the Treasurer just said, off-budget spending. They'll involve borrowing or cutting, probably borrowing. Is this the best way forward to Australia? And why wasn't there anything in there on cutting Australians' power bills?
Well, a 44% reduction in electricity costs is the pathway to a stronger economy, lower electricity bills and a better outcome for Australians. I think that's pretty clear. 44% is a big number, Andrew, and that's why we're doing this, including a portion of clean baseload nuclear power in the system brings down the overall costs of the system, which puts you in a position where our manufacturers, data centres, Australian households, small businesses can pay less for electricity over the many decades to come.
Angus Taylor,
and at the same time,
that your estimates, which create that 44%, involves a massive shrinking of what the economy is going to be. What do you say to that?
Oh, well, this is, the only people who know how to shrink this economy is the Labor Party, and they're doing an extremely good job of it right now. 7 consecutive quarters of GDP per capita going backwards. It's completely unprecedented, Andrew. Household budgets are in disarray. They're in ruin. We've never seen the hit to household disposable incomes, the standard of living of Australian households, like we've seen since Labor came to power. Not at any time in the past. Not the recession we had to have under Paul Keating. Not the Gough Whitlam economic disaster. This is worse than all of those situations. And so I won't take lectures on the economy from the Labor Party. But I'll tell you what, one of the ways we know you strengthen the economy is to ensure that the electricity costs in the economy are lower than they otherwise would have been. And that's what this plan does. It's a broad range of technologies in the plan. It's a balance. The one person who isn't balanced on energy is Chris Bowen and his mates. The vested interests are out there squawking away at the moment, as you'd expect them to. The agents of foreign investors in this industry that we see working with Chris Bowen. But he's not interested, it seems, in getting electricity bills down. We've seen that he promised a $275 reduction, Andrew, and we are nowhere near that. He's got 16 days, by the way. He's got 16 days for the deadline on that, but I think we can all be pretty confident we're not going to see that.
But what you're talking about here, Angus Taylor, if we take the nuclear aspect out of it, is a massive federal government interference or involvement in the energy market. You're talking about up to 38% federal government-owned nuclear plants. We're talking about a capital cost of $140 billion by my calculations. 120, your guys say. It'll probably be more. Let's face it. I mean, you're a former energy minister. Doesn't this distort or stop private sector investment if you put this much federal government investment into an energy market?
Well, a couple of things I'd say about all of that, and they're the assertions that come from those squawking vested interests that I talked about a moment ago, Andrew. The first point I would make about this is the best way to ensure the private sector is strong in this country is to have lower costs of electricity. We're seeing manufacturing going backwards in this country. We're seeing a record rate of insolvencies in businesses across this country. And we know one important contributor to that is electricity bills. If we want to ensure we have a strong private sector, you've got to have low electricity costs. The second point I'd make is that historically, big baseload generators have been driven by government investment. They've got to get a return. That is what's built into the model, and they should get a return. They must get a return. But that's the history of big baseload generators, not just in Australia, but around the world. The key here is to have lower costs of electricity, and that is the goal here, 44% reduction. And I tell you what, something about Labor's plan that they've never been honest about, it is being completely underwritten by government. Entirely underwritten by government. How much of that we end up paying for in the budget? There's no transparency whatsoever from Chris Bowen on this, but it is being underwritten by governments, indeed right to the point where we're seeing the Victorian and New South Wales government doing backroom deals with coal-fired generators to keep them open because that's necessary, they've discovered belatedly, in order to get sensible outcomes. So, you know, this is the kind of hypocrisy we see from Labor. A Labor Party that is taking us down the path of 4 consecutive massive deficits.
Okay, I'll get to that.
As Chris Richardson tells us, $220 billion in 4 years in the headline cash balance in the red, Andrew. That's the issue we've got to deal with right now.
The coal-fired power station staying open for longer. Briefly, who funds that? Is that the federal government under you, or the state governments, or how's that going to happen?
Well, that is all being costed in the costings that have been put out.
Okay, fair enough.
It includes coal remaining open until there is appropriate replacement, and that will be a mix of technologies.
Could it be federal funds that allow? If I have the New South Wales government saying we're not going to do that. It's all entirely costed. Right now, the Victorian and New South Wales governments are covering that. We'll see. Labor hasn't been transparent about the pathway they're pursuing on this right now. They've put out some changes which are very vague and in principle. All right, Angus Taylor, I'm nearly out of time.
We've been watching that very closely.
Sorry, I'm nearly out of time. I just want to get a couple of things in. The suggestion you could have a plant up and running by 2036, isn't that a bit ambitious? Mm-hmm. You've got to put a regulatory system in, etc.
No, look. Yeah, I know. And, you know, it's true that under Labor, regulatory systems are sclerotic and they stop everything from happening. Our approach to a regulatory system is to get things moving, Andrew. It's a very different approach. It's a Liberal Party approach, which says don't clog up the system with more unnecessary regulation. Get your regulation right, fit for purpose, and get things done quickly. I mean, we're seeing a Labor Party that regulates our resources industry out of existence. Getting an approval through in the resources sector right now is impossible. Getting approvals through for housing is proving to be impossible. There's a different approach to regulation, which is fit for purpose, to deliver the outcomes we need, but don't clog up the private sector, don't clog up investment, don't clog up the investments that need to be made by governments as well. But that's exactly what's happening under the Labor Party.
I just want to circle back on this RBA board stuff with some developing news really on the program this morning. Now, I'm told not one person is getting sacked. So maybe they won't be on the rate setting board, but no one's leaving the RBA. And I should clarify to our viewers, it's from the 1st of March this begins. So do you accept that? No one's going? Is there any particular person that's giving you a red flag when the government's giving you a name?
Clearly, Andrew, you're getting lots of texts through from the Treasurer or the Treasurer's office as he kind of carries on as he does. Let's be clear here. We said we wanted the current board transitioned over. We wanted stability in the board. We've seen someone standing at the drafting gate deciding which current board members they want on the governance board, which current board members they want on the monetary policy setting board. We said that's unacceptable. We wanted to see the existing board carried over. We know how Labor deals with appointments. They get their own way and they find ways of doing that, and that's clearly what they've done here. You know, I've been clear about this right from the start. There's been absolutely no ambiguity in our position. It's unfortunate that the Treasurer likes to telegraph when he's having private conversations with me. I don't do that. He's decided to do that. But what I will say is our position is unambiguously clear on this. It has been all along and it won't be changing.
Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor, thanks so much for your time.
Good on you, Andrew. Good to be with you.